Welcome, everyone. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon. I think all of you know that by now, but I wanted to tell you how excited I am to have you all here for another Win by Noon weekly webinar. I'm always happy to have my co-host partner in crime from Info. Oh, I don't know why I always say info first. That's your email address, from PlugnPlaySM.com. Deborah Byrd, what's going on?
Hello, how are the winners today?
I'm sure they're doing pretty good. So we can't, you've got your camera up way above your head, so we can't see your cool Boys in the Hood, Super Bowl celebration shirt. There you go. Yes. All right. We always gotta, for those of you who don't know Deborah well, she has the best t-shirt game of anyone that we know. And I'm always excited when I have Deborah here because she just makes it better. She asks really great questions and has really fabulous insight into all things mortgage, real estate combined. And today, I'm really excited. We've got Veronica Morrow on as a guest, and I've known Veronica over the years. She's a real estate agent here in Arizona, but rather than me botch up your introduction, Veronica, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about your background, because not only do you have a background in real estate, but you also have a background in loans. You do a lot of training. What would be really important for everyone to know?
I live up in Prescott, so up north, so our markets are all a little different. So I always share that too, because what works here, you can usually take it across the board and use it somewhere else. I have been in the industry for over 30 years, started doing loans when I was 18, had bought multiple investment properties, have sold them all, and got into the real estate industry because I was doing a lot of training, CE training for agents, always coming from a place of value, offering trainings and education, because I think that's key to building a business. So I think it's awesome that the agents and LOs that take time to invest in themselves, like getting on this type of call, is huge. And so just in a nutshell, live up in Prescott, been in the industry. Now real estate switched over about 7 years ago. So still have an active mortgage license, use it for training and teaching. And just kind of my passion is just giving back, helping everyone grow, and they grow, we grow.
There you go. And so for those who don't know, Prescott is in Arizona. It's north of Phoenix. It's kind of like northwest of Phoenix. And it's like an hour and 20-minute drive, depending how fast you drive, right?
Yeah, hour and a half. I can make it to the north side like in an hour. Probably not the wisest, but yeah.
And you can always tell if the person is a tourist or from there if they call it Prescott or Prescott.
Yeah, we're Prescott, not Prescott.
Yes, exactly. And Jeremy on here is a local, so he says it's beautiful up there, and it really is. I've actually got family who lives up there, and I love getting up there and hiking whenever I can. And so so this all kind of started. You all who've been part of this community for a long time know that last year we introduced the CMA-A-Day and the TCA-A-Day challenge, and we had Jimmy Burgess on. And so the backstory on Jimmy Burgess is he's at the time was a producing real estate agent in Florida. And he committed over 90 days to do a comparative market analysis. For those who don't know what a CMA is, people call them different things, but he committed to do it unsolicited every day for 90 days that he worked. So for him, he did 75 of them over that 90-day period. And as a result, he got $11 million worth of listings. And of those listings, he sold 9 million. It's not like now where you put a listing in the ground and everything sells, but he sold 9 million. So that's still a pretty dang good number. And then the cool part was when I interviewed him last year, he said, well, since then, without remarketing to any of those people, because now he's in a leadership role at Berkshire Hathaway there. Now each year he sold about $5 to $6 million of property to those same original 75 people that he solicited. Either he listed their homes or sold them as a buyer, a new home. And I just think it's really powerful that when you're providing education and information to your clients that's accurate, that you're building that trust and you're going to build that relationship. And so I went on to a great real estate group that I know. I got a good friend who leads a group called Next Level Agents. And I posted in there, who here kicks ass at CMAs? And Veronica was the first person to raise her hand. And so I was so excited that we could have her here to talk about it. But ultimately, whether you're a real estate agent who's here, I want you to be thinking about this from a perspective of how could you implement this discipline as a daily discipline into your business to grow your business going forward. I think it's probably the best way to get a listing right now. Or if you're a loan officer, let's put that TCA-A-Day cap on. We'll talk about that after Veronica shows us her wizardry. And then really just think about also how you can help your real estate agents. Because right now we need a lot of listings, right? Here in the Phoenix market where my team operates, there's less than 4,000 available homes, which is just a crazy number. Prescott's kind of the same, right, Veronica?
We're really low. Yeah. And that's what we're doing, is pulling some stats this morning. It has dropped so considerably. And then I'm going to show you guys a great tool as well that I actually just found out about yesterday, which is crazy because I've been doing this for a long time. And, unless you go to specific places, it's an actual appraiser friend of mine who shared with me. So it'll give you like stats, inventory, housing, time on market, and how they make their time adjustments. So it was really interesting. So excited to share all that. But yes, the market is shifting. And one of the biggest things is we're all low in inventory right now. And it's going to become more and more of a problem, I believe, in the next 3 to 4 months.
All right. Well, now I'm even more excited that you're going to share a nerdy tool with us.
No, I'm all about tools. Don't add too many, because I'm like, leverage what you have. But this is one that I'm definitely going to promote to add to your box of tools.
So, from that perspective, when I said, hey, who's great at doing CMAs, you raised your hand. So kind of how does it fit in your practice currently?
One of the biggest things we're targeting now, my business has shifted because I do a lot of referral business too. So a lot of my business, and then training other agents, right, around the state.
Hence the reason you've got agents sitting behind you.
Yeah, these are my team back here is Helen and Riley, and a few others that will be coming on, and one here shortly. But so one of the biggest things is because we are seeing that lack of inventory, right? So we're all about lead generation. So we use multiple systems. And one of the things we really want to target this year, because I'm a little bit heavier on the buyer's side right now, just because the last 2 years have kind of shifted. And a lot of my referrals are coming is a lot of agent to agent referrals. So about 80-90% of my business is that way. And then the rest is my sphere. So I'm constantly working my sphere. But one of the biggest things is how are you generating those leads? Like you chatted about doing one non-solicited, right? Which would be going to your sphere and generating that. Then the additional is we do a lot of landing pages. So the landing pages where someone can get a listing, but then we follow it up with certain, like always coming from a place of contribution, which is, hey, did you get it? How can we make it a little bit more fine-tuned for you? Can we schedule an appointment to clarify the information so that you have one that's a little cleaner, right, than what they're getting from just a Zillow's estimate or something like that. So it's just always about putting people in the pipeline and then being able to generate those future listings, right? So you have to, if you're targeting, you have to have multiple ways to do that. If you really want to focus more on listings, which is where we're headed more this year, because buyers, we got it covered, but listings were low. So we have to come up with a better strategy and more consistent strategy on doing that, right? So one would be the listing a day. And then we would add on top of that, the lead generation with the landing pages for the free CMAs, and then follow that up with the call of let's give you value. Let's get it clarified. Hopefully that answers that question.
How many different landing pages, like, are you doing this just for your area? Or I know you said you have a lot of, agent to agent referrals. How are you getting those?
The referrals?
The agent to agent referrals.
So one is teaching. So my business has been teaching all around the state. And then when COVID happened, I would go to different offices and I would spend time in the Valley, spend 2 or 3 days down there, go to different offices, networking, right? It's the same concept, getting people to like you, trust you, right? And so forth. So, and then the other is I've joined tons of networking groups online. Facebook groups. So once you start getting out there, I have people that refer me who have never sent me a deal, but refer me because I gave them value. So I have tons of teams down in the Valley, big teams that send me continual referrals. And then I have a whole process that for a different day, but I have an entire process where everything is streamlined. We use Google Forms, which trigger PDFs, which trigger to our transaction coordinator. And then we have a portal that we use, a system called Shaker, where they can check the status of their referrals at all times. So the number one thing I will tell you, the reason we get so many referrals is because we follow up with the agents. We let them know what's happening throughout the process. So it's no different than how I'm dealing with my clients, right? It's communication. Communication is key, whether you're working with referral agents or you're working with clients. All they want to know is that you care and that you're keeping them up to date with what's happening. And we get continual referrals all day long. So in the last week, we got 4 just alone last week from all over.
That's all in your state.
So, and out of state too. So that's what I'm saying. If we join referral groups, so a state is huge. So large portion is in state, but then it's now flowing out of state to networking within other, within our company, and then as well as in those Facebook groups.
And when you say multiple landing pages, is that because you're running ads to entice people to request a CMA or to get a home evaluation?
So those are separate. So the referral is one thing, right? We're networking in there and doing that. And then the landing pages are separate. So we leverage as well. And that's what the team is working on right now, is joining. One of the biggest things, we join 10 Facebook groups a day. I'm sorry. So you should be joining 10 Facebook groups a day. Last I checked, we can't post in more than 20 a day because they'll start spamming you. Okay, so that's one leverage. So one of the biggest things I tell you is my marketing budget is pretty small. And that's because I've learned to leverage using the Facebook groups and then also targeting areas where people are moving from. So if you're talking like lead generation, right? So in our area, if we're targeting listings, I'm going to target like yard sale groups, real estate groups, any of that kind of stuff, and putting the pages there, just offering a free market analysis. And you will get people to sign up like crazy, because that's what people want to know is like, okay, the neighbor sold, what's mine worth, right? So all we're doing is giving value. Just give value, and find ways to do it to where if you're running a Facebook ad versus leveraging and putting it in these groups. So you could do it for buyers. The strategy works the same for buyers or listings. Same strategy. It's just giving value. Like, here's a free list of the top 10 subdivisions in Prescott. But then if I'm looking for buyers, I'm going to be marketing that. So one of the things people want to check is, if you're looking for stuff like that, is where are people moving from? So we target states and join groups where we see a mass exodus, and where most of those people are moving to Arizona.
And where do you find that info?
So you can go to websites like the moving companies, like Van Lines and all those. They actually have reports on their systems that show you where a majority of the people who rented their trucks are moving to and from.
Have you ever checked out how money walks from the IRS website? It shows like a map of where people are moving from. So in the beginning of COVID, it was, people could work remote. So you had states that were very dense, like New York, Connecticut, and people were moving.
Correct.
So I haven't looked at it recently, but I didn't know if you had that one in your toolbox.
I don't.
How money walks.
Yep. So I'm going to look that up. So like with the Van Lines, it does show, and I'm sure they're going to be pretty much the same, but having another tool is awesome. So I'm going to check that one out when we hang up, and I'm sure my team's writing it down too. Yeah. So and so that was part of the thing, like you're saying, like New York, Washington, we're seeing a mass exodus out of those states coming to Arizona. And of course, those are kind of spreading out, but we do see a large portion coming to Arizona. So that's where we're targeting from that perspective. But in Arizona, if I'm targeting, I will be targeting local in those states, right, in our cities, because we're considered a quad city. So if you picture kind of a triangle, you have Prescott at the tip, Chino's over here, and Prescott Valley's over here. So it's like the quad, and then we have a couple of small towns. So we are about 15 to 20 minutes away from each other. So when we target, and the price points, that's kind of the reports that I'll show you guys today, kind of how to do those, but the price points are all different. So like the average sales price in Chino Valley is around 400,000. The average sales price in Prescott is almost 700,000, and Prescott Valley was closer between 5 and 6. And then of course our out little towns that we have, like Dewey Mare and Paulden, those were one was 300. Paulden I think was 300,000, and Dewey Mare was 360,000. So again, it's what are your niches, right? So that's the other thing we talk about is, okay, where are people buying? What price points do you want to target? And then how do you strategize and target those to get listings in those areas, right? And to me, it goes along too with doing open houses and different things, because I have gotten listings from open houses. A neighbor coming in to get a value, and they had an investment property, and they're like, hey, what's it? Just giving them value. Say, hey, I'll give you a free market analysis. They got it, and they're like, dang. And then turned around and listed their home. So there's all kinds of strategies based off of how each person wants to target that business, right?
So I know you said your marketing budget was small, and Todd, you tell me if I'm asking too many questions at any point. What are you doing for Facebook ads to generate? Because people are trying to do at least a CMA-A-Day. I'm thinking of all different budgets, and I think it's a great tip with joining the Facebook groups and providing value. What else are you doing that anyone listening right now could hear that is generating at least a CMA-A-Day? And specifically, are you running ads on Facebook?
So we are regenerating our ads again. So when we were running them, like I said, we're re-kickstarting it, because that's going to be like adding to our focus. Because again, I follow market trends. We're seeing a shift. We're going to see a shift because they're trying to stabilize the market, right? And right now, supply and demand is going to continue because we have such an influx of people from out of state still coming in, especially in Prescott. And I don't know, you guys' market is a little bit different, but in Prescott, we have a lot of retirees. So we are always going to see that consistent like money coming from California and cash. So we're competing with a lot of cash, right? So when it comes to the ads, we were spending on the average $200 to $300 a month. So it just depends. Like I think the lowest anyone should spend really on those ads should be around $50 to $100 a week.
Per ad?
Per ad per week. So it just depends on, how you're running. And then, back when they've changed now how Facebook does that, because back when we would even target like age groups. And it would, and we were looking at the age group, not because we didn't want to have that specific age group. We were looking at the age group from the perspective of these were the folks that were actually clicking on them in these subdivisions.
Right.
So we were then modifying our budget based off of that age group and spending more time and money on that age group. Because if we were going 18 to 100 or 18 years old to 55, 18-year-olds weren't looking in that price point, and they weren't looking in those subdivisions. Do you see what I'm saying? And now it's a little bit more open and broad, that you just kind of have to be watching it. And that's what we did with Helen's ad. She was doing a first-time home buyer ad. And we were looking at that this morning and looking at the demographics, like how many people clicked on it, how many impressions versus how many actually, you know, the impressions versus the click-throughs. And then how many leads did you generate from those click-throughs, right? So then it's like, okay, if that ad's not working, then we need to change it up a bit. So
are you guys running those ads through Messenger?
We did. So Riley, you're going to be running with bot. So he's running with bot. He's like my techie guy. So I have bots in a lot of my systems. So he's setting up all the bots now through
Messenger is doing really well for conversion. So I was going to just say that's a good.
So one of the key things is Messenger. So when I'm doing my referral business, everything is through Messenger to other agents. And then when I'm talking to leads, I will tell you our conversion rate is 90% higher if you're texting. Because a lot of people can't answer during the day, but they're going to answer a text in about all day long.
So that means anyone listening, if they're not on social and you're handing out deals, you're looking for the people who are also active to give deals to.
Absolutely. And so that's what we're changing it to the next level. So one of the tools that we're looking at, and when you were asking, like, how do we get our referral business, is the next business or portion I'm adding is adding a referral network across the country, to where we have specific systems that have MLSs throughout the country. So then we can actually lead generate in those states, get a buyer qualified or someone who's looking to sell, and then hand that person to somebody in that specific state, and then be able to collect a bit of a higher referral. We're not handing you a qualified buyer or somebody who's ready to rock and roll today.
So can I ask a quick question on the Facebook groups? 10 Facebook groups a day. So you say you're joining like yard sale and local groups. Are you, so like you said, Washington State is a place people are moving from. So are you surfing Facebook and trying to find groups in Washington State and then joining those groups? Or can you give a little specificity on that?
That's exactly what I'm doing. And then I also look at how many people are in those groups. So there's tons of groups all over all different states, right? But if one group only has, you know, say 5,000 people and another group has 15,000 people, I'm going to go with the 15,000 people group, right? Because you're touching more people. So that's what I'm looking at, is yard sale groups. And of course, I'm looking at the rules too, because there's certain groups that don't allow you to join if you're not in the state. And there's certain groups that don't allow you to market in their group. So I always look for, you want to look for more open, broad ones that are going to allow you to put anything in there. So we post ads like, hey, if you're looking to move to Prescott, check out this open house, check out this home. Or if you know someone who is, please share this home. And we will generate leads all day long. And they're free leads. Think about it. So a lot of people, I look at things a little differently. I'm a firm believer that a lead is a lead. The lead is only as good as we are. So, and what your follow-up plan is. So I look at it as if I put a landing page out there, it's no different than someone going to Zillow and requesting information from me. I'm just getting to them first. Then it's on me is speed to lead. So all of our leads are 3 minutes or less. That is the key to real estate right now. Like, people have the attention span of a goldfish. If you don't get to them, whether if it's a bot or a text or a call, they're moving on. So you're wasting your money and your time if you're not going to have a follow-up process to any of your lead generation, whether it's for CMAs or buyers.
That's why Messenger's killing it right now. For anyone running ads, I would switch everything to Messenger, but you got to have someone ready to respond or have a bot to help.
So that's why I always tell people, I'm a firm believer of systems and processes. And people always ask me, like, how do you do everything? And I'm like, besides the fact that I'm a little crazy sometimes, like, if you would see what's going on up in here, it's pretty crazy. But without processes, systems, and tools, it is very hard to do what we do, because we can't be everything to everyone. So my thing is always streamline the process, find tools and technology. Don't get away from the human aspect. I think someone still needs to follow up with a call, putting a face to the, a voice and a face to the message. But I think it's super important that you use your messengers, your bots, and that technology, so that if you're out with a client, you're not just lead generating and having it just go somewhere without a follow-up process of some kind. So 100%, and so I have systems that we can share on a different day, if we go to a different day, that have all of those tools in it. You just have to activate them.
Love that. Love that. So, all right. So landing page hits, someone's like, oh yeah, give me a value on my home, I'm thinking about selling. Then what's your process from there, and kind of walk us through how you're creating a CMA?
Okay, so when someone were to generate, like we put it on out there and somebody fills it out. So automatically our system sends us a text and an email. And it says, hey, somebody's just requested information on this property. It'll also send us an email. And it also automatically goes into our CRM. So everything is auto, right? So from there, it would be getting to them as quickly as possible. So if they, and again, some people will only put emails. We set our stuff to request typically both email and phone, because I'm like, if somebody, and there's a mindset on that too. There's a lot of agents that don't like lead capture. Lead capture is, I think, real estate 101. Like there's a difference between just marketing and getting your name out there, and you're going to have a budget for that. And then you should always be focused on lead generation and conversion is our number one job as agents. That's how I believe. Number one job, lead generation and conversion.
I think it's great. I'm a big fan of lead generation and lead conversion. So I like it at least in the top 2 or 3, but for sure I'm game with it being number 1.
Yeah, and then we source everything else out. So RTC, even just in a nutshell, RTC writes our offers. We pay her more, and we have a whole system for that. We oversee it. It's still in our name, but we pay RTC to do all the data entry stuff so that our true focus can be lead generation and conversion. So if someone comes in, we actually will then reach out to them via email if they gave us a phone, right? An accurate phone, because usually our system will check to make sure the phone is accurate. We will call and text if we can't reach them. So we always leave a voicemail, and then we will also text and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. You requested information on your property. I'm marketing out. We would love the opportunity to schedule a time to chat with you. What works? Like, it's simple. It's not like you don't want to go too detailed in your messages or leave long voicemails because automatically they think you're trying to sell them something. It's just, how can we help you? Right? How can we schedule a time to chat? From there, then we typically will go in and just check it just to see. I leverage all of my tools like RPR and all of it, because that's kind of like my backup. I always want to see what RPR says. And then I go in and do my own comps. And then it's really interesting. Typically they match.
So RPR, for those who don't know, that's the comp system built into the Arizona MLS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have it on our phone, and we have it on everything. So even when I'm out showing property, that's the first thing I go to when somebody's like, hey, where does this fall? Because we're always talking about appraised values and things like that, right? So I always pull up the RPR, and I always tell them I'm going to go back and verify, because I'm going to go back and verify the comparables and get a better accurate number. I said, but I will always pull up RPR, and it gives you a range, and it also gives you how many stars, and then it gives you what it's listed at, and then what its recommended price is.
Got it. So the stars is how accurate it believes its estimate to be.
Yep. And I'll tell you, most of the time when it's between 3 and 5 stars, it's pretty on point. Because I go run my own comps, and I'm like, oh, wow, like we're right there.
So the computers are getting pretty smart.
You're getting smarter. Now, areas are different, but I also go check them, because we have a lot of manufacturers in our area. So sometimes those market analysis will pull those in. And that's why that's some of the stuff we share when we talk to a client is, hey, we really want to get a little more fine-tuned on what your home looks like, preferably schedule an appointment to come see your home, all free of cost, no commitment, no obligation. But we'd love to come and have the opportunity to just share some more information with you and see, what that leads to, right? So it's really trying to get that person on the phone, but then you also have to follow-up plan, right? So the other thing is that even though you have someone who's requested information, you don't want to kill that lead. I'm a firm believer. I don't know if you guys, I follow Ben Kenny. Years I did family reunion. I'm all about education, share the pieces that work, the ones that don't. I don't care what company you're with. I always believe there's value everywhere. And so Ben Kenny followed the 10 days of pain. So I'm a firm believer, if a person has not responded to you within 10 days, they either buy, die, or opt out. That's it, or sell, right? So buy, die, sell, opt out. So if they haven't opted out, I'm going to try to reach you in 10 days, trying different strategies, text, email, call, right? And skip some days. So you have to have a strategy. So we have a full 10 days of things that we would do. Then on the 10th day, if you still have not communicated with us, but you haven't opted out, then we're going to put you on a drip. And then we're going to come back and touch you again every month, right? Until they opt out or buy. Because the thing is when someone's requesting information, if they're not opting out, it's because they're interested. So I have always had this mentality, even as a lender, because my mortgage like that. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I don't care if you have bad credit, good credit, we help all people. Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if you have that mindset when you're creating your pipeline of leads, you will always have a full pipeline because you're always trying to serve and help somebody get to that next step. Because even if somebody isn't ready to sell today, doesn't mean they're not going to be ready to sell in 2 months, 3 months, right? So it's just constantly being top of mind. And then circle prospecting comes into play and a whole bunch of other things that you can do. But
I like it because you talk as fast as I do.
I'll try to slow down. I know we have a little bit of time. And that's the Hispanic in me and the multi-language. I speak fluent Spanish. So I've always, when I get passionate, I go crazy. So I'm always like, Veronica, remember to slow down. So yes, so just remind me if I'm getting a little too crazy with the cheese whiz.
I'm from Texas. We talk slow.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're good.
We're a little quick.
I like it. Sense of urgency.
So yes. Okay. So once we've done that initial contact, right, then the next step would be, okay, let's go in and create these market analyses at a much deeper level, right? So then it's figuring out exactly, I will go to the county. I'm all about verifying the information with the county records. So if I get an address, I will go to the county too and verify who the owners are. And if you guys want, I'll share my screen here. Am I good to do that?
Go for it.
And I'm gonna probably share, let me see, screen 2 here. And I'm multi-screen, so if I'm not looking straight on at y'all's, because I have like these huge screens because I'm on this stuff all day. So some of the stuff we do, like MLS. So here, you know, most agents that are on, this is our Flex. And I'm not sure in Texas, are you guys, what do you guys have?
We have MLS.
I mean, MLS, but I mean, do you guys use Flex too?
I have no idea. I'm a social media person.
Oh.
I've never seen Flex.
Okay, well, this is Flex. For y'all who haven't seen it. And I didn't notch out, like, it's really hard to not put, you know, see my client's info. So please, like, you know, disregard whatever you might see here. So when we first log in, here are all the different, and it usually will give you the ones that you've looked at the most. Actually, I'm going to switch it over here. And I might have to switch screens. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, you got to remember here, we got a lot of lenders who have no idea some of these things. So that's why I'll keep jumping in and asking for clarification.
Perfect. And so this kind of stuff is great. So again, I come from a lending background, and my value proposition was always value. How can I help agents? And it's tough. Some agents only put in the minimal. I mean, I love both industries, but you always have the minimalists. And it's always great when, as an LO, you can come in and tell them something they didn't know about their own system, not by trying to make them feel a certain way, but it's always just value, right? Like, hey, have you seen this? Did you know your system could do this? Like, I went to a class and I learned this, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a firm believer of all of that. So one of the biggest things, like I said, RPR. So we have RPR on all of our like technology. So that's one of the things I do leverage. I love cloud CMA. Like, I'm a firm believer of simplicity, and I guess I should share with you all, I'm also DISC certified.
Oh, cool.
I'm a personality assessment. So personality assessments, I'm just certified with John Maxwell, an executive director with John Maxwell, as well as a life coach with Tony Robbins, Madonna's program. And so with that, I've gone to enough appointments and talked to buyers and so forth that personality comes into play, right? Some people like a lot of information, some people like a little. So you have to find that happy medium, but also be able to brand yourself and do things as quickly as possible. So Cloud CMA is one of my favorites. That I've used for a long time, 1 for the branding and 2 for the simplicity of the report. So because some of the reports, like through RPR, have so much information when you're giving a market analysis that it's overwhelming for some people. So it's like, what are the hit points? Usually, what is the number one thing? And I'm gonna ask a question, I don't know if they can answer, but what is the number one thing a seller's looking for?
Price,
right? What their bottom line is. So that is the most important. Like, they want to know how their home compares, and then they want to know what they're going to get. Right.
So Cloud CMA is built into your MLS. So do you get it for free, or do you have to pay extra for it?
We have to pay extra. I'm a firm, like, sometimes it takes money to make money. So it costs me about $40 a month. I just resigned. I actually had it sponsored by someone, a lender in the past. But, and again, we're all about partnerships and reciprocation, and that lender is no longer. So we ended up, I see enough value that I'm going to pay for it myself. Like, I'm always going to pay for my tools if needed. So Cloud CMA is, like, a lot of people use RPR because it's free. So you can use RPR for your market analysis. I am going to share a couple things you could do within Flex, which don't have anything to do with RPR or Cloud CMA. Okay. Great. So the different tools you'll want to use. So when we first come in, and so yeah, so by using Cloud CMA, I actually can export right from my system. So some of the systems, and I think in the Valley and so forth in Phoenix, you can still do this. And sometimes they have some things that we don't and vice versa. So hopefully it works the same. But so when I go into Flex,
is this similar to Netrix? I think it's called. Have you heard of Netrix? I think that's what we use in Texas.
Netrix, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
No. So usually what I would do, so let's just say I picked a property. So I'm going to just kill Kenny. So this is the property I actually wrote an offer on yesterday. Mind you, they already have 5 offers. We're the 6th offer. So we were trying to figure out like what to offer. And so our PR in our system is right here. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So usually I will, the very first thing, if I'm looking for a buyer or even looking at a property, I'm going to go over just real quick and click on our PR. Occasionally, if you haven't used it before, you're going to have to make sure your credentials are in there. And then after that, it typically will just automatically take you to RPR. So this is RPR, and basically it's like a combination of RPR. It brings in historical data, tax data, and everything. So RPR is a great tool. So when you're looking at RPR, this is what I go down and look at. It's listed at 480, but it's saying the market analysis, the RVM, is estimated values. It's an automated system, right? So based on the comparables in the neighborhood and what it feels, it says it should be closer to 461. Do you see that? And then over here, I use this a bunch, which is this section right here. So it shows it could be anywhere. So this tells you there's a big gap here, right? It could be anywhere between 429 and 493. So this means even though it has a 5-star, I'm going to go back and make sure, because that's a big difference. But more than likely, it is valued closer to the 460s because it isn't a big home. It's 1580 square feet. If you see that here, it gives you how many square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, single family, who the owners are, price per square foot, and when it was last sold. Look at that. So you have a lot of information just on the one screen, right? So, and then it tells you in the last month, it went up $5,900, year change. Look at that. 22.92% increase. That's crazy.
Hot market.
It's beyond hot market. Like it's crazy. So when you're looking at this, and then you can go in and people will use this. Like I will go in sometimes and check the comps on here. So you can view the details, refine the value, or create a CMA. So this is where someone can actually go in and just verify the information and create the CMA from here. So you start by confirming the facts. Now I will tell you, and I'm just going to share one of the biggest things. I don't know if I have it here. Do you have a green and yellow sheet? This is also a Ben Kenny thing. Like I feel, I have one here. Even though we are completely paperless, buyers are yellow, sellers are green. So whenever I get someone on the phone, this all gets filled out. And this is kind of our script too. People are like, hey, do you do a done the scripts? No, I believe in everybody has to come up. Like I can guide you on what I say and different things to do. But I'm a firm believer that if you do not put your own spin on it, people are going to see the authenticity behind it. Okay, so we fill out, like if I would have gotten that information and the lead came in, I automatically first go, I grab my green sheet and I jot down all the information I could possibly find. So it's like my research here. I jot down everything I could possibly find regarding this property. Okay, so then when I'm going here, then it's easy for me to verify all the facts, right? Because this is on a totally different screen. So I would need to know exactly how many square feet and so forth are in this. And that's where I tell y'all that I go and I check. We have, a lot of people go to Monsoon, but I will tell you, I've seen some discrepancies between Monsoon and the county recorder. So I just go to the county recorder directly. And I will verify here, like I was telling y'all, you have like the owners there, their address, potentially the address to the property. I verify the lot size. I go down, I look at where it's located. Then I verify the year and the square footage. So I make sure that it's accurate, right? Because just because somebody put a listing in the MLS doesn't mean it's always accurate. So I just always want to reiterate that. It is our responsibility as agents to make sure that things are accurate, regardless on whichever side we're on. So I always make sure I check that. I look at assessments. Most of them will have a sketch, so I can get an idea right off the bat of what the property may look like. You know, based on what was there. Of course, they could have remodeled, but this actually gives me an idea of what to look at, you know, in general, like just a sketch of the property, of the home itself. And And then of course taxes. So then you can look down here and see, okay, what the property taxes are ranging and so forth. So again, just a quick verify. I actually always save this sheet too, because it's from the county. So I always just save it in my folder, my drive. So then that way, when I'm over here, I can just make sure that the public record matches the listing data. Right? So I'm just verifying accuracy again. So if you notice here, lot dimensions, you already have a discrepancy right there. So you just want to make sure that you're going through and verifying. I go down, let's just say it's all accurate. I confirm the facts and close. Then the next thing is finding comparables. So if you use this system, I'm showing you guys this first, because if you're not paying for a marketing analysis tool, like cloud and all that, then you want to leverage what you have. Right. And I'll tell you, I don't use this a bunch, but this is kind of in a nutshell what you would do. So then you go down and it's the same concept. You make sure you mark single family, go over here, property status. What properties do you want it to bring in? Appraisers, and I'll tell you, just because I like having a little more information, I have friends that are appraisers and one that's a really good friend of ours. So I called him over the weekend and I'm like, okay, so everything's always changing. Like, how are you guys looking? And a majority of the weight is always put on closed properties. Now they will take a look to see what the trends are, what's selling, what potentially could close. But a lot of agents put a lot of weight on active and pending. And that's not the case, because we don't know, an appraiser can't gauge what those are going to sell for unless they close prior to this them going and doing the appraisal, right? So I still throw those in because it just gives me an idea of where the market is heading, and based on what it's closed at versus what is active or pending, right? Or active with contract, active with contingency. And you guys in the Valley, they have coming soon options and all that. We don't have that in Prescott. They didn't give us that option through our flex. So everything will look a little different. So again, make sure you're looking at your system. It's not going to be apples for apples unless you're in Prescott. And so I will say single family, active, pending, active under contract, and closed. I don't care about withdrawn, expired, or canceled. Right. And then I go down, and I've usually done 6 months. I do a 6 month trend because on the average, and quote me if I'm wrong, Todd, all the appraisals I've seen on the lending side too, they usually do a 6 month window. They stay within the subdivision. They will go outside of the subdivision, but only if there isn't enough comparables within the subdivision. And then they're going to have to note why they did that. So that's typically, you always want to stay, and typically it's no bigger than a 3 mile radius. Or a mile now. They're going down to a mile because there's so many sales. Is that what you guys are seeing, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we typically see. And I'd be interested, I mean, I can make the argument if I was doing a CMA to do a shorter time period, but I like the fact that you're using 6 months if that's what appraisers are using.
So I will do 6 months just so I can see, but then because there's a lot of inventory, I will take out the older ones.
Got it.
So potentially use, if there's a lot of inventory within a 6 month window and there's say 10 to 15 just in the last 60 days, I'm not going to use older ones. It's not necessary. Right. And then I'm also going to look at if there's any distress, like there's one that we pulled last week that was 425 and everything else in the neighborhood was what, 550 to 600. Yeah. So that definitely is like a red flag for me on that property that I'm going to need to go see what's up with that one, because it is definitely not common for that particular market and subdivision. So you really want to look at that. But here's the thing. If it were to close, it potentially could be used as a comp by appraisers because we never know what they're going to pick. So we always have to make sure. And if it's a newer comp, then you better be able to say, hey, I didn't use this one. Or if you happen to use it, then you'd have a way to dispute it. So you just want to do your research up front and just always know that they could potentially still use it and it will drop your price, right? If you're looking at an average. So anyway, so you go down, prick your price, but here you can decide like from square footage. Now I did verify with the appraiser because this is how I've done it for years. And I've taken some appraisal classes and just, that's the other thing I think as agents or even LOs, education is important because if you're not getting educated on a daily basis or following the markets and trends, what you did 6 months ago is not what we're doing now. So we always want to make sure that you're getting educated on what's happening right in the industry and in the market and what the trends are. So one of the things that he said to me is they still are he is. And so that I can't speak for every appraiser because they're all different. That's why we get different values, right? Is 200 to 300 square feet either way. So if I have a house that's 1,500 square feet, I would go 1,700 and then I would go 1,300. And the biggest would be 300 each way if I'm having trouble finding comparables. Okay, so I'm going to go both. And he says he does the same. So I felt pretty good about that. So in this case, let's just say living square foot, this one did 1,100 to 12. This is a 1,500. So I'm going to take this down to 17. And I'm going to move this up to 1,200. And right now I'm just looking at square footage, and then you can go search. And again, this is why it's important to have either old listing or have your information handy, because you're going to want to go and start looking. Like this one is closed. It'll typically put the closed. It's 0.9 miles away. It was days in the system was 25. Date was closed is 110. And there's your closed price and your square footage. This is 1,676 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It was built in 2004. And I think mine was built in 2004. Yeah. So if you go down, I would say, okay, if I want this one, then I would add it to the comparables. I would just start adding. And then if I want more detail, I could go here. And this gives you a little bit more detail here, but I also have my MLS screen open. So if I want more, I could see it on my screen through MLS to be able to hone in a little bit more and look at pictures, because pictures are important too, right? The quality of the home, like how comparable is it? Like, does it have granite countertops? Does it have stainless steel appliances? Is it never been updated, right? Because there's some that are older in the subdivision that could be updated that they're still going to throw in because they do have the upgrades and it's still more comparable than one that has never been updated. So I'll just go through and I will look at each comparable and say, okay, so I'm also looking at distance, right? This is 0.13 miles away and 1,503 square feet. This is like a really close. And now the thing with this one is it closed in August. Do you see that?
Yep.
August of 2021. So I may not use that one as I'm going through because I have comps that are newer in the subdivision. So as I go down, if you could see, this one is 0.14, but it closed in September. This one is 1.5, it closed in October. So I'll look at this one. This is 0.16. It closed in January, and it's just a tiny bit square footage higher, 1,676 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, same year. That would probably be one that I throw in.
So how long on average does it take you, since you're not just hitting a button and letting the computer do all the work? You're going and you're verifying everything. You're actually taking a look at the comps to make sure that the condition is what you're looking for, that the time frame is what you're looking for. So what's the average time that you would say it takes you to create one?
I'd say if I'm not talking to somebody, I'd probably be like 30 minutes.
Okay, that's
30
great.
minutes from start to finish, because all my systems, I also have it set that I can access everything from my toolbar. So every system I'm in, I usually have them open ahead of time, and then I've clicked and everything, and then I can just rock and roll.
Love it.
Instead of trying to find my login and, because we have so many systems that we access, like everything is set for me that I can just click and then go back and forth through the systems. And that's why I love the multiple screen thing, because in our industry, we're always looking at multiple data feeds. So it's being able to go from one to another when you're doing stuff like this, right? Multitasking isn't for everyone, but it's just how you work is a good thing. So let's just say, just to make this out of simplicity, I'm just going to pick a few more, right? So this one is December, October, January. Here's another one that closed. This one's a little further away, little smaller. So say it's 1,223 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. But it sold in January, which would substantiate the price point. So I'm going to throw that one in. This is November. Here's the 2 more. So this subdivision is pretty busy. Like, it's just a very sought after neighborhood.
And how many comps would you cut it off at?
Usually I go through, sometimes I'll add a few extra. Usually I try not to have more than 10, because I will sometimes throw in, depending on how many I have, I still throw in active, just because those could potentially change my price point if they closed at those price points, because we never know if they're going to close higher or lower, right? In our market right now, typically not lower. So I know if those were to close, they would potentially have some weight depending on when we list and when we close. If that makes sense. And I use that same concept when I'm actually doing a CMA, a market analysis, or looking at it for when somebody's writing an offer. So I do this too when someone's writing an offer, because I want to make sure my buyer is, paying what they need to, and they have all the information so that they can make the best decision. And this helps, especially right now in today's market, when we are seeing prices sell over asking price. So they want to know, does the market substantiate that, and up to how much? Because at some point they're going to be in a negative equity position, right? On that side. If they agree to pay for over asking price and waive appraisals and do clauses and do, the gaps, like it's getting a little crazy. Well, it has been crazy, I should say. So really it's our end, we're all about giving the consumer, whether it be a listing or a buyer, as much information as possible, the pros and cons of all of it, so that they can make the best decision that they can for their family or themselves. Okay.
Yep.
So then as you go down, like I said, this 1.35, a little further away, but a little closer in square footage, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Here's another one, 0.35. These are getting a little further, but if you notice, the ones that were closer were older sales, but there's enough sales in the same subdivisions that aren't too far away. I mean, 0.35 is not very far. And they're the newer ones. It's just not a lot on that particular street or side of the neighborhood. Here's another one. This is October. Let's see. This is November, or I'm sorry, December, January, or September. This is December, October. So I'm going to go down and just look at, and you should be able to sort it too by, you could go to the top, and I think you can sort it by time frame. I can on my other system, like sort like date. Like I want newest to oldest and vice versa. I just wanted all the closed at the top as well. So like this is 0.75 miles away, but it did close February 9th of this year. So I would definitely even throw that one in, even though it's a little further. And I'm going to check, and that still looks like it's in the Granville subdivision. Yeah, still in the same subdivision. So then here comes your pending and active. So Kilkenny, which is the one we 6729 East Kilkenny. This is on the same street. It's active, but it's smaller, right? Now, if I'm using a comp above to substantiate the value, that's 1,200 square feet, I would still throw this one in, just because I used another one that was similar in the closed transactions, if that makes sense. Because I can't say I'm going to use it one way and I'm not going to use it another, because then you're just manipulating the numbers. And I'm all about like consistent with my numbers. So I'm going to throw that one in. Then we look at this one. So if I notice some of the prices are dropping a bit. So this one is pending and it's 1461 square feet. It's less than a half a mile away, same subdivision, and it's at 385. So some of these prices are dropping a bit. So I would probably add that one. See, 4 days, this is a half a mile. It's new on the market. It's smaller, so I'm going to say that one, because I've already added one that kind of offsets the other one that's low that would closed. And then I'll look at the rest of the pending. This one is, list date was 1/5. It's 1471 square feet, so very close to. So I will add a few pending, and then I'll see how many I have.
Got it. Okay, so then you hit the submit button here, and then it kind of spits it all out for you.
I just do that. Yep, update the valuation. Now, this system will even let you go in and make adjustments. So I did run this by my appraiser again. I'm like, okay, how are you guys making your adjustments? And he's like, well, they have their process on how they do it. I have never made full adjustments on listings, because I look at it like he does. His words that he used was that they are looking right now for, where did I put that note? So they look for justifiable market-based pricing is the words that he used.
I like that. Justifiable market-based pricing.
I'm like, wow, because that's how I use everything off of market-based price, because I believe that it's only worth what supply and demand will do. You could put gold on the floors, but you're not going to get gold, right? And then he made a point. He goes, if I were doing the appraisal, he goes, although it's worth so much, but if I'm looking at it from a consumer standpoint and say there's a wood fireplace, he's like, he would give no value to the wood fireplace as a consumer because he doesn't want one, versus somebody who's looking for a fireplace is potentially willing to pay more for the fireplace because they really want a fireplace, right? But what does the market, is the market sustain that price and increase that you would add for a fireplace? And my biggest thing is, if we always say to people, that's not within my scope of expertise, how is it that I'm adjusting all of these prices specifically when I am not a builder, I am not a contractor, and my job is to show what the market statistics are, but not always based on what exactly the countertops are worth, because it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I typically will not go in and do adjustments because I've already made my adjustments. Like I'm looking for quarter acres. I would be looking for like those specifics. So all of my comparables are within those parameters already.
Right. And so once you figure out it's good enough, you just hit a button and it creates a fancy report for you. Do you prune that report down, or you just use the whole report that it prints out?
So in this case, RPR lets you customize. Typically, once you say create the report, it'll ask you like what kind of report you want. In this case, I want a seller's report, property report. You might use more for a buyer. And then you can email it directly from here. Typically, I send it to myself first to look at it. So include me, and I'm just going to add Riley here. Sorry, my fingers are not working today. Prend.biz, and then you can put whatever you want here, and it can automatically go out. Or you can display now open, right? So if I want to do that, run the report. So it'll ding once it has it, okay? So I'm going to leave that there for a second and wait for it to come up.
All right, someone asked a good question. I know how I'd answer it, but you're the real estate agent here. How does a realtor turn an unsolicited CMA into a listing?
Into a listing? Well, first off, I think you have to establish why they would list. I think that's the key, is communicating with them, get to know them, and find out what would make them pull that trigger. Are they, potentially looking to downsize? Are they moving? Do they want to be closer to family? And then be able to establish what the price point would be, what they could get here, right? How much they could get when they sell their home, and then giving them enough information to meet that need of why they would want to sell. I think
right. I think that's key. And I would answer it when we had Jimmy Burgess on. He answered that he's taught this all over the country, and that when he finds it certainly depends on the person's database, but he found that it's anywhere from 1 in 7 to 1 in 10 on average that people found. He used 1 in 8 the last time I interviewed him as the average. If he sent out 8, that he would get 1 listing across the country. But he said some people they had to send 25 till they got a listing. So it really, the whole thing is you're trying to send it to people that you think are likely going to sell soon. And then obviously if they're, if they've been in their house, young family moved in and they bought the house 5 to 7 years ago, maybe now they've got more kids and they're outgrowing it, so it's just one of those things. That would be my answer to that question.
And totally, it's factors, right? It goes back to what would motivate that particular person living in the home. So everything 100% is like, what are the motives? What would motivate them to move forward, right? And then sometimes it's money. You also have to figure out what drives people. If they're driven by money and they can see they can make 300,000 today, and they bought it for, and I'll just tell you, our market here between, and the report I'll show you, it's $100,000 difference between February of last year and February of this year. Profit, 100,000 1 year.
Right, it's huge.
It's humongous, and that's what I'm saying. So it just depends on the tools that you're providing and what motivates that person and factors, right? So if I were in the MLS and I was doing it here, I'm just going to show you how I would do a quick one. This is if I'm going to use Cloud CMA. So that I always revert back to this. I like RPR, but I really like to be able to hone in a little more through here. Okay. And you can export these to RPR, just so you know. There's ways to do that. So you can pull them all through here and then move on. So we want to go through it quick. So let's just say I'm doing active. I'm going to go down to residential residential type. Say I'm doing single family, and I want to do a specific subdivision. I'm going to do that same one, which is Granville. Here. And Granville has different sections, but I'm just going to say Granville there. And then you can break it down like acreage. Like in most cases, I'm going to do 1/4 to 1/2 because that subdivision is all really small lots. You can even leave this like point or nothing there to 1/2 acre just to see. I don't need to put, so there's 6. So let's just say these were the 6 I was going to look at, right? Oh, sorry. I got to go up to the top. So up here, the first thing you want to do is pick active, contingency, pending, and closed. So we went to 114, see? Active is only 6 in the subdivision. So now I want to minimize it because that's too many, and that's all in Granville. So now I want to go down and do, I'm going to say 2 bedrooms. I'm sorry, 2 bedrooms and total baths, 2 baths. And you can put a cap on. I normally don't put a cap because a lot of those homes in this, I know that area, a lot of them aren't going to have 3, 4, some of them have 2.5 baths, which is fine. Like they don't all have, and again, this is how you get to know your subdivisions. You should know your subdivisions too, right? Once you've been in the industry, but if you don't, then put the caps in. Whatever makes you feel most comfortable as you're honing in that information. And garage, mostly all those properties have garage. And sorry, my brain is like, listing date, listing price. I don't want to do, like my brain is gone. Oh, total living square footage. Okay. So I'm going to do 1,200 like I did on the other one to 17. So now I'm down to 64. So I could even hone it in a little more. I'm going to go to 0.40 of an acre. Let's see what that does. Still 64. So that doesn't make a difference. What's the size of that lot, Riley? Do you remember? So it's 0.18.
This is this one?
Yeah. So I'm going to go to a quarter. I'm just going to do a quarter. So I'm still at 61, right? So I can actually move this a little closer. So I'm going to say 1,300 and I'm going to move this to 1,600 just to see how many. Okay, so 33.
So you're trying to get down to how, since we've only got a few minutes left, how much are you going to try to narrow that down before you would send it to a client?
I'm going to try to get this closer to like 20 or 25 that I can look at. And then I'm going to go select them.
Okay.
Just like I did on the other. And I won't bring you guys to that. So let's just say I had 33. And I'm just going to quickly, I'm not going to go through these because you saw how I did it. I'm going to go detail. And of course, I'm going to say, okay, this one, I'm just going to say, this is what I picked, right? I've gone through them and these are the ones I selected. And I will, same thing. That's why I like the system here, because then I can see the information from right here and select what I want. Instead of having to go from RPR back and vice versa. I start here. So I just say I picked these properties. I've gone through, spent 15 minutes going through all the properties, and these are the ones I picked. I selected 7. So I'm going to hit the selected. Now I have 7. I will usually save this as a search just so that I don't have to go back and do it again, just so I know what I use. But then if you're using any of the other systems, I just go export and I go CMA. And then it automatically brings me over here and I'll just say for Todd. Oops, sorry. And this private notes are ours, MLS comps. And then here I'm going to put the address, which was Kilkenny 6889. Oops. Kilkenny Place, so it recognizes it. And then I will usually go through. Usually I'll bring in the square footage. Sometimes we'll bring this in, sometimes it won't. Residential, property type. You can decide on, if you have something special there, and then advanced info. I will usually fill this out because I want my seller to have the information. So garage 2, subdivision is Granville. And then site built. But if you notice, it brought in all the MLS numbers I selected right there. Or you could do your own search. This is another way to do it, but I always like to do my own. Then I fetch the listings. So one of the key things, and you guys will have to check an RPR if you choose to use those, like I said, is the guide net sheet. Right here, I can put all the costs of what estimated costs are, and that's really what a seller wants to see. So I will go through, you can actually move these. Here's a map. This is the way I like it. So it has the map, and then the property we're referring to is right there. Then this gives them a comparison of where the other properties are, and they're color coordinated. So red is sold, orange is pending, green is active, right? And so I go down and I will call. So just what I do, I do a lot of back end stuff. So I call the title company. If I have a preferred vendor, or you can go online to their website and get fees. I will get fees based off of the price that I suggest that they sell at to send them. So I will fill that out. You can move these properties up or down based on how you want them to come out. And then this is the cool part, is customizing the report. You can have this all pre-customized. I added a cover page. You can select, and that's where you're asking, what do I include? I decide based on the client, if I've talked to them, what I want to include in the transaction, because you have some really savvy clients and you have some that need more, right? So I will always send the same thing to everyone. So once I've selected that, I hit publish the report. And basically I can email them, do a ton of different things through here, but it just depends. So this is the viewing. And I'll see if the other one came up. So this is our marketing.
Well, very fancy.
Yeah, so you can include this, like that's just a photo. I made an image in Canva and then I uploaded it so that it fit. I have the size down. And then I like this because—
All right, wait, go back to that for 1 second, your cover. So all of you here, this is how you get a Arizona, specifically a Prescott lead, over to Veronica and her team. There's her phone number and her email address. So since you watch this far and you're getting educated by her, this would be how you repay her.
Thank you. So we'd love it. So then your market analysis, this, and I'll just scroll down really quick and you guys tell me where to stop it. Just, you can add whatever letters, like here's a cover letter telling them about us and our team, and then what a CMA is. There's some great pages in here because it tells them the difference between a CMA and an appraisal, which I think is huge. I think people really need to understand we're not appraisers. We're basically basing it off the market data. So you can go in and put whatever. The coolest part is all these are live links. So if they wanted to connect over, takes them straight over to your social media. Again, it's all about keeping them. They're going to want to do research on you. I don't care who you are. They're going to want to know what you do, what you're doing. So all of ours are linked. Then it starts with the market analysis, all the properties, puts them in order. And then as we go down, sold, pending, active, listings. And then it shows, I picked this because this is kind of how appraisers look at it, and it's really easy to see side by side. You can decide how they look at it, what kind of like comparable they're looking at. And as you go down, it puts all the closed, the pending, and it still has, like an appraisal does, the subject property on the left. If you see there, go down, and then your analysis here tells you of the sold properties, 6 of them, average price per square foot is $297, pending 302, active 305.
Right, shows a trajectory of our market.
Exactly. So this is huge. And then down here, this even gives, and you can decide to leave this in or not. Accuracy from Zillow, it's it gives them an excellent 7.3% off. This is a huge page. On the average, properties are selling at 100.1.2% higher than their list price in this subdivision. Yep. And on the average, there's 6 days on the market. So this is, again, great tool, easy to read. Again, I like this one because it's easy to read. I also go over the net sheet, and that's for a different day. I added this blurbage, and it's about the difference between what they're paying a listing agent versus what they're going to offer as a co-broke. I think that's super important that people explain that to their clients, and that's why there's a lot of litigation right now. Again, for a different day. Then closing, you can market this, so you can actually enter like the first week we're going to do, and I'm modifying this because I had to redo it. So these are, you can add that to your system here. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you, and in a nutshell, it just kind of goes down, but one of the biggest things is I don't do listing appointments like everyone else does. When I get this information and I'm going to schedule a listing appointment with you, I send all of the information ahead of time to review, because you have to think if somebody's interviewing agents, they're interviewing say 5 or 6 agents, let's say. Everyone is there to sell themselves. I'm there to connect. So I want to make sure they got this ahead of time. And then when I go, I'm answering questions, getting to know them, and just reviewing this, but not having to present, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's really smart. I mean, for you loan officers, what I would relate that to is like when a client wants to meet you to sign disclosures, I always said, that's awesome. I want you to read it ahead of time and sign everything, and then just put a sticky note on the things that you want me to specifically answer questions on, just because I always knew it was never a good use of my time to sit there and watch them read every document and go through it. Once I did that once, I knew that was the last time I was going to do it.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So all agents go to a listing presentation trying to sell themselves. I'm there to connect. So I will win the listing 9 times out of 10. The times that I don't is typically because somebody wants to cancel and not pay a cancellation fee. Like they're not sure if they really want to sell. And I have expenses I pay. So I get to choose if I take that listing or not. Or if somebody just wants a short term, or they're really overpriced and they're not willing to sign. I also have my clients, if we price higher, I have them pre-sign price drops in the original contract. So we have them pre-signed, like I'm willing to do this with you, but if we don't get this many showings or an offer within this much of time, we've already got those price drops signed so that I know I'm going to be able to sell this home and not jumping into something that's completely overpriced and unrealistic. Because as a professional, it doesn't make me look very good either, right? When I'm just throwing properties out there. So that's that. So in a nutshell, that's that one. The only other thing, if we have a few minutes, I can share with you guys what the report is on Flex, which I think is like huge.
All right, let's wrap it in 5 minutes, because I know you people, I value all your time, but I think Veronica's dropping some gold here. So let's have her do that, and then share her secret new appraiser tool, and then I will let you all get back to work.
Yeah. So this one, so the way that you do is you could do your search. Let's say you had all these here, right? Or if you just wanted a specific area, you would pick, let me unclick all these. And let's just say let me go back to this one. If I want to do Kilkenny, I'm just going to do this one. I can go over here to CMA. So, well, let me go back. I'm just going to do a quick search. And in this search, let's just say I picked, I'm not going to pick everything. I'm just do this, and I'm going to go down to town. I'm just going to use my town, which is Chino, because it's up at the top. Where'd it go? Chino Valley. Okay, in a nutshell, here is 336 properties. I just want to get an overall, like if I wanted site built and manufactured over the last year, 2, 14, 20, 21. 2, oops, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. 14, 2022. So he did say that they're doing this. So appraisers are actually doing this now because they're required to fill out a Fannie Mae form. And so it was added to our association, which I had no knowledge of. And like I said, I usually consider myself pretty educated, which this was kind of cool. So let's just say I have these 624 in a year, right? And I didn't select because I want residential type. Let's say I just want to compare site built and manufactured because we don't have condos, patio homes, or a lot of townhouses in our area. I just want to know an overall trend. You run over here and you go to the CMA up here on the right. You want to use all the results. And you want to use the statistical CMA. And he said, leave this alone. They don't modify that. You can if you'd like. You hit next step. And this is the key. Fannie Mae 1004 MC. He says they're required to do with all Fannie Mae loans. And they are actually filling this out to look at what he called the time adjustments that they put on their appraisals. So this is helpful for us when we're looking at prices. And you click the Fannie Mae 1004C and you don't do anything there. And then you just hit view. Look at this. It tells you how many are active, price points, and then down here, it will tell you a trend. So if you notice here, if you look at this section right here, 7 to 12 months, 277 total comparable sales, 4 to 6 months, 152. Look where we're at, 95. So we're seeing a trend too because we're lacking inventory. So if you go down, it tells you the absorption rate, the active listings, and the months of supply and demand. Look at what's happening there. We're going from 1.21 months to 1 month of supply. That's huge.
Yeah, so someone's asking, so this is through Flex MLS. So for the loan officers on here, you don't have access to this fancy Fannie Mae 1004 thing. But if you're a real estate agent on here, you should be looking in yours for this new secret sauce, which is that time on market adjustment, which we know that's kind of one of the areas that rubs, you know, if anything under appraises, that's really the area where I would encourage you to have your real estate agents look at to see if they feel like that's an accurate adjustment. If you're going to challenge an appraisal, that seems like the one area where you could potentially do it. So I love that it's on there and that you showed us that.
Yeah, and days on the market. This is the other thing. Look at, so right now we were talking about prices, right? Look at the days on the market. We, in the last year, when we first started a year ago, 10 days, we're up to 18 and 20, which is telling you that even though we have a supply and demand issue, people aren't willing to pay those prices like they were a year ago. So even though we have a supply and demand, this is where this could be helpful if you're working with buyers, huge with sellers, like huge. Now on the lender, the last thing I'm going to say for your lenders, your LOs that are on the call, this is something that you could share as value to the agents you're working with. Hey, if you want to really, you know, hone in on market or get people off the fence, this is a great tool for them to share with them that's in the system that they may not know about. Because I'll tell you, we didn't know about it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That is awesome.
I know that was a lot in an hour, but
all right. So stop sharing your screen so we see your smiling face here front and center as we jump off. So Deborah had to go. She said that was awesome, but she had a back-to-back call since Deborah's the busiest woman I know. So for you loan officers on here, if you're interested, go check out PlugnPlaySM.com, where you can reach out to Deborah at info@PlugnPlaySM.com. I can't say enough about what she's done for us. And you real estate agents can just hope that someone like Deborah comes along and can help you with your social media because she's mortgage specific. But I just want to say a couple of things in closing, right? So if you're if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to the Win by Noon user mastermind group and you can get a copy of the free 1-month version of the TCA and CMA-A-Day. So if that's something you're interested in doing, committing to that, in Q2, we're going to make a big push on that. So we'll be getting you all in there. But in the file section in the Facebook group is the free version of that. And then you can also go to winbynoon.com/TCA and you can purchase the wall calendar, which is the big 11x17 fold out version of that. And then I would do exactly what I said. If you have someone who you know who is looking to move to Arizona, I would make sure that they reach out to Veronica. She added value to you. You watched this whole video and would love to have you do that. Any last minute things you want to make sure you say, Veronica, before we let you and your team get busy?
No, I mean, other than, grateful to be on the call. I appreciate being able to share anything, and if anyone has any other questions, I would be happy if you guys, be happy to speak with anybody individually. Like I said, I'm all about sharing and contributing, or if there's something else you guys want to learn about that we do, I'd be happy to share any of that as well.
Something tells me that we're going to get lots of requests from the first half hour where we went over 100 different ideas that you have, and we'll have you back to dig into some of those. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a little more concise on what we're doing. And today, like I said, was the first time, so we were trying to figure out like what to share with you all, but there's just so much. So I appreciate all of your time.
That was awesome. Well, thank you and your team in the background there for everything. Appreciate all of you for watching, and we will see you next Monday here for the next Win by Noon weekly webinar. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys.